I tell you what does suck, racism. I've had enough. See, people get mad at me all the time because this guy treats people like they should be treated. I celebrate the content of your character, not the color of your skin. And I got to tell you, the LA Times does not. The LA Times, one of them newspapers that's dying, says that Sheryl Swoop is right. Black people can't be racist. My ass, they can't. Not only can they be, but they are. So are white people. Sheryl Swoops is right. Black people can't be racist, read the headline in the LA Times this week. The author, a black man named Clyde Ford, references Sheryl Swoop's defense against accusations that racial animus stirred her inaccuracy-laden belittlement of Caitlin Clark's collegiate career earlier this year. Well, I don't give a damn what Clyde. See, people just show how stupid they are. And Clyde did too. Look, if you don't think, I get it. We totally get it. We totally get it. We know the code words. See, the whole code word thing has flipped a 180. But we know the deal. We know that if nothing else, Sheryl Swoops is an idiot. Sheryl Swoops is a vicious idiot. Look at her Loyola coaching record where she got fired for whatever. I have no idea. I don't know why she got fired, but I can only assume it was abusive players. Now, I don't know what that means in the women's game. See, abusive players in the women's game can be sexual. I don't think it was with Sheryl Swoops. In fact, I've never seen any evidence to it. I'm just telling you in the women's game because lesbianism is just rampant. My wife got the job at Syracuse because the previous coach got fired for having an affair with the shortstop. That's women's sports. You can deny it. You can get mad at me. You can do all you want. But Sheryl Swoop's right in the middle of it, and she is god awful. I know she's married. Don't even come at me with that nonsense. So this is what this clown, Clyde Ford, said, citing the commission. The article concludes racism can only occur when one has power to affect someone's life physically, economically, educationally, politically, and otherwise based on racial prejudice. Well, let me explain this. Sheryl Swoops is an icon, absolute icon. One of the historically great players in women's basketball. Now, she comes out as a WNBA pioneer, whatever the hell that means. She comes out as a WNBA pioneer and talks about how god-awful this woman is, how she's not that good. You know what that does? That does affect her. That absolutely affects her. It can affect her physically because these women are crazy. Like, you don't even understand how crazy these WNBA women are. I mean, look at the arrest record. They're nuts. They're angry. They're nuts. She won't be a lesbian. They'll try to recruit her. This is all based on my wife and others in the world of sports. Don't even at me about it. So guess what? This woman, Sheryl Swoops, does have the power to affect someone's life physically. She does. She did. You know, these crazy lesbians in the WNBA are going to come at her just like they do on college campuses. My wife had a great story about her first college party where two of the straight girls go, look, you're a freshman, you're pretty, stay by us, and you'll be fine at this party. They had to keep them away from the lesbians. And that's been going on forever. My next-door neighbor, same thing. What are you talking about? This is the reality. I know you all don't like reality. I know you all like going, well, that's just me. Yeah, okay, great. This is the world we live in. So, Caitlin Clark, little white girl, not a lesbian, is harmed physically by Sheryl Swoops' words. She is not going to be harmed economically because everybody knows that Sheryl Swoops is an idiot. But that don't mean it's not going to harm her physically. Educationally, yeah, okay, that's just a word somebody threw in there. Politically or otherwise based on racial prejudice, that's all that was. That's all that was. If you think Sheryl Swoops would have belittled a black woman for doing what Caitlin Clark did, you are insane. Now, what I just said wouldn't hold up in a court of law, but so what? Basketball is a majority black sport. The most influential voices in basketball for males and females are current and former black players. Well, maybe. I would argue current players. Look, Nikola Jokic, pretty strong voice. Larry Bird, pretty strong voice. Their voices shape the narratives that white players face in the locker room and via the public. Yeah, who cares? I mean, why is it always this and this? I tell you one thing. When I was in a locker room, for however many years I was in a locker room, I never thought, well, that's a black voice. Well, that's a white voice. Never, not one time. Hey, you can't speak because you're a white voice. What? But it's not the players that do this. It's idiot former players and media that can't wait to do this. Why? I tell you all the time why. Cap money, baby. Cap money. Everybody's looking to be the next Cap. Everyone's looking to be the next. Hey, man, Nike's signing me to a deal and put me on a contract. Well, because you know what? I'm down. I'm down for the cause. Whitey bad. Whitey bad. You know this. We all know this. Can't wait. There's also jealousy. Oh, you know it burns Sheryl Swoops' ass that she got to look at a little white girl scoring all those points. You know it burns Sheryl Swoops' ass that Sheryl Swoops got to look at all the attention the little white girl's getting. I mean, I'm just saying the population is vast majority white. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But a little white girl doing those things appeals to the vast majority of the population if we're going to break it down on racial lines, which is what Clyde, whatever the fuck his name is, and Sheryl, whatever the hell Swoop's name is, if we're going to break it down on racial lines, well, then let's do that. African Americans, what, about 12%, 13%? The rest, non-African American. So a white girl comes out there, starts scoring a lot of points. Duh. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? All I ever hear out of African Americans is, it looks like me. It's so great to see someone that looks like me. Well, Caitlin Clark looks like 80% of the population, 70%. But it drives you nuts. Instead of respecting Caitlin Clark as an athlete, a clown like Sheryl Swoops and a clown writer and a clown newspaper like the LA Times has to chime in with racial stupidity. Speaking of Caitlin Clark, how about this? This is a death sentence. This is a sentence. Holly Rowe is going to follow her around. Holly Rowe is the worst. Anybody that works with Holly Rowe goes, oh, my God. All she wants to talk about is herself. She's just about herself. She's self-important. She's always begging. People that work with her hate it working with her. I get it. She bullies her way on TV. We all get it. But that woman right there, Caitlin Clark, was sentenced to Holly Rowe. Excuse me, sir. We are sentencing you to 10 years in the joint. Excuse me, ma'am. We are sentencing you to 3 weeks with Holly Rowe. I'll take the joint. No, I'm just saying. I'll take the joint. I don't want to sit there with Holly Rowe on my ass every day because I got to listen to Holly Rowe and her fake niceness. Stop it. Holly Rowe is about Holly Rowe getting Holly Rowe on TV and becoming more popular than anybody and making sure that she dominates all the other little girls that are sideline reporters and others. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it, stupid. This is a mismatch. This is a mismatch. The brilliance of Charles Barkley against the racism, stoicness, and stupidity of Kendrick Perkins. Charles Barkley calls out the idiots at ESPN. He calls out the idiots at ESPN because Charles does not like the idiots at ESPN. He calls them idiots because, well, ESPN, doing what ESPN does, play the hits, says that the Lakers and the Warriors have a chance to make the playoffs and make some noise. Kendrick Perkins fires back. And let me give – that's Kendrick Perkins. Don't mess with Barkley. No. Here's what Barkley had to say about the, quote, idiots at ESPN.
The West is going to go down to the wire. I mean, plain and simple. It's going to be fun to watch. You know, our sister network on the idiots on the other network keep talking about the Lakers and the Warriors like they got a chance. But listen,
they have a chance. It's called the play-in.
The play-in is not a real thing, just for the record. That's just something we made up, Shaq. It's just like the CBI tournament. That's what the Lakers and Warriors.
Oh God, you're already in college basketball. Man, the CBI is not
making up stuff.
CBI is not.
They should thank Adam. They should stop. They should thank Adam Silver for making up some stuff. Hey, let's just add a couple of teams to the playoffs so the Lakers and Warriors can get in.
That's no lie, man. That's no lie. That ain't wrong. And see, at ESPN, you play the hits, which is why, excuse me, people love Barkley. I told you a story of Mark Schlereth one time telling me at the Doubletree Hotel in the lobby, we were just talking about local national radio because I got so tired of hosting a national show because it was always talk about LeBron. I don't want to talk about LeBron in the middle of August. I don't want to talk about him in July. But you got to play the hits at ESPN, and that's what they do. Here's Perkins firing back.
I saw Charles Barkley say something hilarious. He said, the idiots at the other network, okay, I think he's talking about ESPN, keep talking like the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors have a chance. Shaq checked him immediately, was like, they have the play-in. And then Chuck, the play-in's not real, is what Charles Barkley said immediately. Now, Charles Barkley's one of the greatest speakers of all time. Anytime he talks, I will listen. The Miami Heat were in a play-in game, and then they make it to the final. So there is a chance to go from potentially on the bubble all the way in there. But what are your thoughts on all that? Are the Lakers and Golden State dead? Is this something that you and ESPN are just pushing because LeBron James does numbers on the SportsCenter Instagram account, Perk?
Well, let me say this.
Okay.
First thing first, okay? Charles Barkley is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Okay, that's number one.
With his head.
Everything that comes out of his mouth is not the gospel. Now, he's an all-time great. He has done a hell of a job in the media world, and I respect him like crazy. But here's the thing. We're going to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, and we're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors. You know why? Because they have LeBron James, who is arguably the greatest to ever touch the damn basketball, and you have Steph Curry, who is a generational talent and a top 10 all-timer, okay? And we have to appreciate them because when both of those guys are gone, what else are we going to talk about? We can't talk about them. So the fact of the matter is that they're both, 4 or 5 games above 500, so they're a really good basketball team. They just happen to be in the Western Conference. And the playoffs started right after the All-Star break in the Western Conference. So we're talking about these play-in games because it matters. Can you imagine this? Imagine a world this postseason without having Steph Curry or LeBron James in it. Like, we can't do that.
Can't.
Like, so,
Why not? I mean, so when Steph Curry and LeBron James are gone, we got nothing to talk about? I mean, Victor Wembanyama, all I'm hearing about is him. Luka Doncic, see, that would piss old big-ass racist Perk off if you had to talk about Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. I mean, that's 2 white dudes. I mean, that's code. That's what he was saying right there. Excuse me. He was saying, I don't want to talk about these white Europeans. He don't even want to talk about the black Europeans. Victor Wembanyama from France. He don't want to talk about any of it. And I just told you why ESPN does what they do. He just told you there. You play the hits. You don't have to be. You do not have to be at all accurate or at all on point at ESPN. You don't. You used to. You used to look, hey, we are going to go out and we are going to tell you what's going on in sports. Serving the sports fan anytime, anywhere. That's what's going on at ESPN. But not anymore. Now it's like, oh, my God, we got to talk about LeBron. It didn't start, but I started paying attention to it with Brett Favre. Like, you couldn't swing a dead cat without talking about Brett Favre. Like, Peyton Manning was in the league, but every day it was Brett Favre. Brett Favre. Well, of course now it's LeBron James. And the NBA rules at ESPN right now. It does. Look, pro football, college football is always going to rule. But where are we? We're in March. ESPN, unfortunately, does not have the NCAA tournament. So they got to talk about what? You got to talk about professional basketball. So if you're going to talk about professional basketball at ESPN, you don't talk about the best teams. They're not interesting. The Celtics, and even though Jaylen Brown's like the highest paid human being alive that nobody knows about, the fact of the matter is you got to talk about LeBron. It's dishonest. And Perkins just admitted it to you. And it's sad, and it's one of the reasons, not all, but one of the reasons ESPN is going down. Right now, you've got the 9th seed, which is Golden State, and the 10th seed, which is LeBron James. And you know what? That ain't changing. LeBron James got 32 losses. The closest is Houston with 35. Golden State's got 31 losses. Same thing. Closest out of the playoffs is Houston with 35. Nothing you can do about it. That's the way it is. So I guess since they are close to the playoffs, there's no reason to talk about the surprise team OKC, which has the number 1 record in the West. If you close your eyes and said, who has the number 1 record in the West, you wouldn't know it was OKC. But that's what ESPN does. Play the hits, baby. Play the damn hits. It's a great strategy. ESPN's business model's been pretty good. But you just heard from the big stupid. That's what they do. That's what they're asked to do. And Barkley ain't wrong. All right. Deion Sanders. He of 3 wins in like September and none since, but he's still very popular in our eyes. Deion Sanders shares what concerns him about Caleb Williams. His son Shadir in the NFL. That stuff matters. Here's what the great one has to say. Let me tell you something that I have a problem with. And this kid can flat out play. I think he's the best one on the board this year for sure. A kid that's coming from California for the last couple of years, right? And went to Oklahoma. That's not terribly cold. Chicago's cold, man. Oh, there's no doubt. All right. Next one. You got to think about this kind of stuff when you're taking a young man. Like, see, when you take a kid from Ohio State, you bring him to Chicago. Okay, I can understand that. But from California to Chicago, not only that, they added what? 1 or 2 more games in the NFL, 17 games? Come on, man. You got to factor in stuff. That stuff matters. I'm not disagreeing with him. No, I'm not. And Chicago, you play half your games outside. Now, the beauty of Chicago is you're going to play in September or late August, whenever the hell the NFL season starts, and it might be 80 with the sun beating down on you. And then you're going to play like in November, and it might be 25 or 40, somewhere in there, but the wind is so damn cold off the lake in Soldier Field that you're like, what the hell? What are we doing? And then, of course, you got December, where snow's going to be up to your ass, the wind's going to be blowing across through your ears, and it's the coldest place on earth. And you got to go play quarterback. And then you get to go to Green Bay for 2 times. How about them apples? Minnesota is outside. You got to go play there. Detroit's inside. God bless you. But he ain't wrong about this. Now, I don't view Caleb Williams, looking at him right there, as like this gritty, tough guy. I view him as a whiner and a complainer, but I could be dead wrong. I could be. What the hell do I know? But that's how I view him. Like, I viewed Anthony Richardson when he came to the Colts as just a tough dude that was going to go ball. I did. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I have no idea. But that's how I viewed Anthony Richardson. The more I heard from Anthony Richardson, the more I liked him. The more I hear from Caleb Williams, the less I liked him. I got to factor that in, too. But, look, Deion ain't wrong. Not wrong at all. And, you know, his son has an advantage. You know, truthfully, you could have snow in September, and a lot of it at Colorado. You could have 85 degrees and brilliant sunshine. I mean, his son is probably more ready in terms of internal body temperature by having played at Colorado. But let's make no mistake. Dudes can play anywhere. Southern Miss is where Favre played. Now, I don't know about you, but it gets hot as bejesus at Southern Miss. And look, how'd Favre end up doing in Green Bay? I'd say pretty good. Aaron Rodgers came from California. How'd he do in Green Bay? I'd say pretty good. So, yes, I get it. You do have to take that into account, but it's also based on the personality of the player. Period. That's it. Baltimore, cold as D's nuts. But guess what? Lamar Jackson plays pretty good. Lamar Jackson's from Louisville. Louisville has a great temperature in the fall and early winter. Great. Not good, great. Maybe perfect. Just cold enough. Keep you comfortable, really warm in September. And all he did was go out there and ball. All right? Sanders talks more, and he always talks about his kid, which would piss me off if I were a player at Colorado. Here's what he says about his kid. Like, I don't want my kid going nowhere cold next year. Grew up in Texas, played in Jackson, played in Colorado. Season's over before it gets cold. I'm just thinking way ahead. I don't want that for him. Really? I gave you pretty good examples. Look, going back to the Mannings, I don't blame any dad for doing what a dad's got to do. We're all over Caleb Williams and his dad, right? But Archie Manning's like the patriarch of all of football. Oh, my God, Archie Manning. He said this. He did this. Let's get Archie more commercials. Let's get the Manning family more commercials. Well, guess what? Eli did what Caleb Williams is threatening to do. He got drafted by San Diego. Archie went in there and shucks, we just ain't going to play for you out here, San Diego. We ain't going to play. Oh, shucks, let's have iced tea out there on the front porch while I give you a good old-fashioned fucking. That's what Arch did. Arch said, come on, let's go have us iced tea and talk about it. And they sat there with their iced tea, and Archie gave the San Diego Chargers the business. But we're mad at Caleb Williams? Can't get mad at Deion Sanders for this if we're not going to get mad at Archie. And, of course, we're not going to get mad at old Arch. Old Arch, he raised him 3 good sons, man. He did. He can do whatever the hell. He's icon. He's best player ever not win nothing. Yeah, okay. Pull this. It plays Jingle Bells, but I don't mind even a little bit. I don't mind even a skosh that Caleb Williams' dad is doing that. He should do that. I mean, what the hell? If it's good enough for Archie Manning, good enough for us. Remember everybody got mad back when we were canceling people? Neil Young quit Spotify to protest Joe Rogan's COVID opinions. Because if you don't think like a liberal, we run away and cry, they say. Joe Rogan's opinions on the vaccine did not match up with Neil Young. Now, I have a history with Neil Young. My first concert in college, second or third week there, we snuck in. Next thing you know, one of my teammates pukes all over this frat boy's white coat in front of us. I looked, I said, hey, man, we better get the hell out of here. Nah, it's true, we did. What can I tell you? But anyway, so Neil Young, this is after a new $250 million deal. That's what Joe Rogan just got from Spotify. This week, Neil Young announced he was ending his boycott and returning his music to Spotify. This is perfect. This is Libby's. Let's hear from Neil Young. My decision comes as music services Apple and Amazon have started serving the same disinformation podcast features I had opposed at Spotify. Okay, Neil, really? Doesn't have anything to do with you lost millions, Neil? Seriously? I mean, really? I mean, I know. Hey, look, I get it, but it didn't have anything to do with that? Nothing? Okay. By the way, Neil Young came back to Spotify. Congratulations, Neil. And his excuse, according to Joe Rogan, was he said that because of all the platforms are now allowing my disinformation, he's going back to Spotify too. Great to know you've got some ethics. Look, if you're going to pull a boycott, Neil Young, pull a boycott. I mean, what the hell? I think if I'm Neil Young at 722 years old or whatever he is with a look like that in the modern world, I'm just glad someone cares that you pulled your stuff from Spotify. I'm just glad that somebody gives a rat's ass that Spotify even carries your music, even says we'll do that. Dakich, you don't understand music. Neil Young's an icon. Neil Young sucks. He has a whiny voice. His songs are dull. When they came on, I turned the channel. But having said that, I do agree that everybody's taste in music can and should be different. There's a saying on my radio show in Indianapolis, hey, I like what I like. That comes after a big dude, Fred, told me about his wife, who's about 5'8", 300 pounds. I go, that's a big one, Fred. He goes, hey, Danny D, I like what I like. So I've always adopted that. I like what I like. And if you like Neil Young, God bless you. Who am I to say? I just know I went to a concert. My teammate puked on a jacket. The music was dull. When I grew up listening to WLS and The Loop in Chicago, if a Neil Young song came on, I turned the channel. What can I tell you? It's just what I did. And I ain't afraid of it. But good, thank God. The long national nightmare is over. Neil Young is back on Spotify, baby. This is one of the great stories. Danny Munson is a friend of mine. We've been texting. In fact, Dan's going to come on my show in Indy here coming up at 2 o'clock on 1430. Dan's a good friend. Well, he's not a good friend. He's a friend. In fact, Dan Munson, the Long Beach State coach, is the last adult male that I played golf with. It was me, Lute Olson, Eric Lautenbach, the head of Nike basketball, and Danny Munson. We're playing on a Nike trip in Bermuda or somewhere like that. We start having beers. Not Lute Olson, not Eric, but Danny and I. Danny has, I don't know if he has too many. I just know this. His shirt's off, and we're playing golf, and I loved it. I did. I thought it was great. Well, Danny Munson got fired or left the other day on Monday, Long Beach State. Well, Long Beach State ran through their conference tournament. Now Dan Munson is in the NCAA tournament. This isn't unprecedented. A friend of mine, Bob Weltlich, did the same thing way back, 90s, at Florida International. Parting of ways, they said. Next thing you know, Weltlich and Florida International won the tournament and got in the tournament. Danny Munson, Long Beach State made the decision to move on from Munson, but opted for him to remain in place until the end of the season. He was 17 years there. At 18 and 14, they went into Big West Conference tournament with a 5-game losing streak. So the thought was they wouldn't win it all and head into the tournament, was it? That thought backfired. And now Munson is taking his 49ers into the tournament, hoping to play the Cinderella role. Every lower seed wants to be at this time. Hey, look, I don't know about you, but I would root for Danny Munson regardless of whether or not they're a lower seed, a higher seed. I don't care what they are. They're a 15 seed, and they got Arizona in L.A. or somewhere out there. I don't know. I watched Long Beach State play. It looked pretty good. I watched Long Beach State play. They seem to be on a bit of a what's the right word? Oh, crusade. Are we allowed to say that? We're not at Valparaiso University. We got to say a beacon. But anyway, I don't think Long Beach is going to beat Arizona, but I didn't think Long Beach was going to get into the NCAA tournament coming in on a 5-game winning streak. This is what I tell you. This is what I told you last week about the NCAA tournament and how you get in. I mean, just think about that 5-game losing streak, and they win the tournament. Wisconsin playing awful, gets hot, gets to the championship game. North Carolina State wins 5 games in 5 days. That's 5 games in 5 days. So I don't care, and I said this the other day. You can tell me your team's hot, your team's cold. You know, we're going to be tired after 3. No, you're not. No, you're not. Long Beach State gets in the tournament with a fired coach. North Carolina State gets in the tournament. First time they won the ACC tournament championship since Jim Valvano in 1987, winning 5 games in 5 days. And this is what I always say. You guys tell, well, they're tired. Ain't nobody tired. The only way players get tired is if they're hanging out at night doing what Indiana players do, hanging out at Kirkwood. Kilroy's on Kirkwood. Smoking that ganja. I don't know if Indiana players are smoking that ganja, but you get my point. If your team is out, if your team is smoking, if your team is drinking, you can't play 5 games in 5 days, but apparently North Carolina State can. And God bless them. How about UConn? UConn's bracket has UConn, San Diego State, and Florida Atlantic. You know what those 3 have in common? They were 3 of the 4 Final Four teams last year. Did you know that Nebraska's never won a game in the NCAA tournament? I did not know that. Auburn pisses me off. Auburn was 4th overall in the Ken Pom, which is maybe the most respected of all of the analytics. Auburn wins the SEC and still gets a 4 seed. Auburn got job.